Yeah, we'll see. Welcome everyone, and Dr. Lester, if you would lead us.
No piano player, we're gonna sing Acapulco. Sing with me.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, the bright and bright stars through the perilous time? For the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Say the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorrells as our invocation.
Let us pray. Oh God, we appreciate so much that we live in this country, this community. We thank you for that privilege. We thank you for your son who gave his life. We appreciate what these people in this club do to this community, what they mean to this community. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Mr. Terry Duffy, family of Rotary.
Thank you very much, President Greg, all you fellow Rotarians. Great to see you individually and my speakers today. I can promise you, Doctor, when we have a piano player that is a very good piano player, plays loud, we sound a whole lot better. Only Dr. Lester can pull that out. It's critical. Just saying. Birthdays today: Andy Goslin on May the 10th, Rick Reichert on May 13th, and we have one big anniversary to celebrate because it's the only one we have to celebrate is David Flowers and his beautiful wife Meredith. That's on May the 11th. Hope you all have a great week. Thank you.
Dr. Dennis Cove, introductions of guests and visiting Rotarians.
Good afternoon. May need some water to get through this list. It's a long list today. So I'd like to welcome our guests, visiting Rotarians today. When I call your name, would you please stand and remain standing until all visitors are recognized. We have Whitney Galloway, guest of Stephen Holland. Shelley Olive, guest of the club. There she is back there. Bruce and Michelle Korf, is that correct? All right. And then we have Joanna Woodham, guest of the club. Mac, Kim, and John Hollis, guest of the club as well. We have Carly Kirkland. I'm sorry, we got the whole Kirkland table here. We have Dr. Keith Bland, just sat down, our principal, Dothan High School. Got to hurry up and get him back to work. We have Brooke McCarthy, guest of the club. Brianna Pena, Cody Pena, Brian Pena, there, also guest of the club. Do we have anyone I missed today? Anyone that we may have left out? All right, thank you for visiting with the club today.
basket drawer.
Don't worry about
The number of points, 1,007, and the last four digits, 5553. 5553.
Look at the Irish.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, check this. I'm sure I saw this. Okay, all right.
Ooh, close. Team clubs, the ace of the zone.
Look what happened. Look what happened.
Couple of things, we're going to have a soup drive starting in the next couple of weeks. We're working out the details of that. Also, we have about 3 Rotarians who not paid their dues yet. That would be appreciated. In the board meetings in May and June, we're going to have the new members of the board join us, so we get emails on that. And the board meeting is next a week from today. All right, Alan Richards has a presentation.
Thank you, President Greg. It's our pleasure today to announce the 2023 Dorothy Hardwick Scholarship winner. I'd like to take a moment to cover what exactly the William Guy Hardwick Trust that he set up for his wife, Dorothy Hardwick, the scholarship is about. William Guy Hardwick, the husband of Dorothy Hardwick, set up the trust that funds the scholarship. He was elected as the state of Alabama Lieutenant Governor in 1954. Also served in the House of Representatives. He was also a member of this club. Mr. Hardwick stated that Dorothy Hardwick graduated from Dothan High School, and she received a quality high school education, which enabled her to make a caring and outstanding wife and citizen, and to be active in community and church affairs. He said that it was a pleasure to establish a scholarship program for outstanding students attending Dothan High School in Dothan in honor of his wife. In selecting the recipient, there should be consideration of the scholastic standing of the student, moral character, school activities, and general qualifications of the student. The student should be favored if all other factors permit, or who may be financially unable to attend college without financial assistance. The first scholarship was presented in May of 1993. Our 2003 winner is Miss Brianna Minya Pena. Is that close? Brianna goes by Ashley Bray. If you'd like to come forward, I just want to tell the group a little bit about you. Brianna goes by, I believe you go by Bree.
I do. I go by Bree or Bree.
Bree is a student at Dothan High School, and at Dothan High School, Bree has established herself as an involved leader. She was class president, 10th and 11th grade, STA president her senior year, National Honor Society, National High School Scholar. While working at Sam's Club as a member specialist, all while maintaining 3.99 grade point average. Bree will be attending Wallace College to study nursing. We're very glad, very honored to be able to present you the 2023 Dorothy Hart Scholarship.
Hey, guys. I am very grateful for this opportunity. It has been a very hard and long journey. Might not look at it, but I am an ELL student. My first language is Spanish. English is my second language. I came from Puerto Rico in 2017 after Hurricane Maria hit my house. Completely destroyed everything. I've been homeless. We struggle financially in many, many parts of my life. And now I'm just like starting to get, what I call blessings. Everything is a blessing, but sometimes just things get hard and it's okay. I have been blessed to have a very loving family that loves me and cares me and always care for me in every single step of the way. And I am very grateful for that. God has helped me in every single step of the way, and I'm very blessed and very grateful. Not everybody gets to go to college. Not everybody gets to come out of where they're from and start a new life. So I just wanted to say thank you, and I truly appreciate every single one of you, and just thank you. And like I said, we live here in the United States, and we are very, very blessed to even be here. There's many places that don't have the education that we offer, and it's very important for us to always be grateful. Because back then, when I was at home, I didn't have any of this. And I am very grateful for what I have now, and I want to make sure every single one of you, your grandparents, children, grandchildren, knows how blessed and how, they gotta be grateful. Because things are very hard outside in different parts of the world. Thank you.
Well said. I have made a mistake up here. I'm not as lined up as I should be. Introduce our presenters on the 4-H watches. So please forgive me, and the presenters come right on up.
Good afternoon. Mr. Officer Gardner asked me to take over for him for the 4-H watches. So the 4-H watch presentation was started back in 1940 when Mark Cannon started this tradition. We acknowledge the dedication to excellence that 4-H clubs instill in our youth, and presenting the gold watch to a deserving boy and girl from Houston County. So I'm just going to introduce the person that will be introducing our two winners, with Miss Whitney Galloway.
Thank you so much for having us here today. 4-H is the starting point for some of our youth to be able to learn what it means to serve their community. Hopefully they'll grow up and become Rotary Club members, okay? So we do have two very deserving students. This year we awarded both of these students a $1,000 scholarship each for our 4-H scholarships. Only 35 students in all of Alabama received these scholarships, so they were 2 of the 35. We have Mr. Matt Hollis, who is a senior at Wicksburg High School. He has been a part of the Wicksburg Ski Club and 4-H for the past 5 years. He won the 4-H state shotgun championship in 2021, and he serves as a positive role model to the youth at Wicksburg. He plans to go to UAH to study mechanical engineering, and he received an academic recognition scholarship there at UAH. So Mr. Matt Hollis. He has some fun shotgun stories, so you can have him. Also today, we have with us Miss Carly Kirkland. She is a senior at Dothan High School, and she has been a part of 4-H for 4 years. She has served as a Wiregrass 4-H ambassador, was selected as a state 4-H ambassador. She has also been a part of the Houston County 4-H County Council as well. She volunteers and serves her community and is a positive role model for the youth in her community. She is receiving a delegate scholarship at Wallace here in Dothan, and then she plans to transfer to the University of South Alabama to study occupational therapy. Thanks, Carly, for coming.
He's got.
Yeah, he's got.
Let's give them one more.
Here would like to introduce our speaker who will introduce.
Dr. Sink is away. He couldn't be with us today. The reason he and I are introducing Dr. Korf is because the All of Us research program is located in our Health Center South Medical Tower. Really happy to have them there and to teach you more about the program today.
Hi, everyone. Greetings from the Netherlands. Mary and I have just spent 2 wonderful weeks here celebrating many things, including the national holiday of Liberation Day, where American and Allied troops liberated the country many years ago. The Dutch people still recognize and thank the Americans and others for liberating this wonderful country. Today, in the Wiregrass, we're celebrating a very important day as well. Today, Dr. Bruce Korf has come to us from Birmingham to talk to us about the All of Us research program. Mary and I and our family are enrolled, and we strongly support this. We think it's going to be a very good initiative for our area. And I would very much enjoy seeing all of you think about it, become ambassadors of it, and hopefully make our lives better for our citizens. Thank you, Dr. Korf. Thank you for Dr. Farouk and all of you for being here today and for allowing me to say these few short words. Thank you.
That said, I have a few words about our special guest as well. He received his bachelor's in medical degrees from Cornell University and completed his PhD in genetics and cell biology at Rockefeller University. He completed residency in pediatrics at Boston's Children's Hospital, neurology at the Harvard Longwood Neurology Training Program, and genetics at the Harvard Medical School Genetics Training Program. A little fast forward to today, he is now the Associate Dean for Genomic Medicine at UAB and the School of Medicine and Chief Genomics Officer for UAB Medicine. He has a longstanding clinical and research interest in neurofibromatosis and is nationally recognized for his work in that space. He also has a strong interest in the integration of genetics and genomics into clinical practice. And actually, that's what leads us here today, learn more about the All of Us research programs. Let's extend a warm Wiregrass welcome to Dr. Bruce Korf.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Also, thanks to all of you for inviting me here today, and especially to Dr. Hearsink for inviting all of us to set up here in Dothan. And what I'm trying to do in this next few minutes is to give you a sense of the opportunity that is represented by the All of Us research program, which is really to build the foundation for precision medicine, I think really for generations to come. So what I want to do first is just very briefly define what we mean by precision medicine, then get into the kind of background of the All of Us research program. How does it work? What is it doing? Then I will give you a little bit of a glimpse of what the researchers are going to see and what they can do with the data. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, give you a sense of how you all can get involved and to help make this a success. So let me begin with kind of a metaphor for precision medicine. Just imagine for a moment that you discover you don't see so clearly, that your vision is blurry. Hopefully not as blurry as that, maybe, but you don't see as clearly as you'd like. So you're going to go to an eye doctor. Now, what does the eye doctor say? They hand you a pair of glasses and say, well, the average person seems to do well with these glasses. Give it a try. If it works, great. Doesn't work, we'll find another pair. Well, no, they don't. What they actually do is put you in front of a machine like this. They ask you with different lenses, is this clear, is it not clear? And after a few minutes of that, they eventually then come up with a prescription for your eyeglasses that is only going to work for you. At least for distance vision, you wouldn't think of handing your glasses to your friend and expecting that they're going to see clearly with it. More likely, it'll give them a headache if they put their glasses on. And so for a long time, ophthalmologists, optometrists have been practicing precision medicine by tailoring the treatment exactly to the needs of the individual. Well, suppose you go to your health provider and they check your blood pressure and they discover that you have high blood pressure. What do they say? Well, we have a lot of medicines we could use. The average person seems to do well with this particular medicine. We'll give it a try. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, hopefully it won't cause major side effects. You know, we'll go to the next medicine. And sooner or later, we'll probably find something that works for you. A big difference from the way eyeglasses are prescribed. And the question is, can we learn why do some people get high blood pressure? And if they do get high blood pressure, what medicine are they most likely to respond to and have the least side effects from? And if we can get to the point where we understand that, then we'll be able to practice precision medicine, not just for eyeglasses, but for the entire sort of litany of things that people go to their health provider for. So the mission of the All of Us research program, which is run by the National Institutes of Health, is to identify 1 million or more individuals across the country that reflect the diversity of the country and to work with them as not just participants, but as partners, so that they are involved and have been from the beginning in defining the protocol for how this is done. They continue to serve on many of the committees that oversee the All of Us research program. Ultimately, to deliver from this what will be the largest data set in history of information that will fuel the development of precision medicine, as I mentioned, for generations, and to give researchers ultimately across the world an opportunity to answer the questions, why does one person get sick with one thing, and why does one person get cancer and somebody else get diabetes? What can you do to prevent it? If the person should actually develop one of these conditions, what can you do better to treat it? So the principles, as mentioned, are diversity at a scale of 1 million people or more. And at this point in time, we're about, in fact, I think, celebrating the 5th anniversary of All of Us. And there's something like 650,000 who have already been enrolled. Of course, nobody was planning for the COVID sort of turn down in enrollment that occurred a couple of years ago. So things have been more slowly accumulating than we had expected. But in fact, before and now since COVID, things have really ramped up very substantially. It's a longitudinal study. So when individuals sign up, I'll explain what that means in just a moment. there's a hope that they will stay engaged in the program. And there's a principle of transparency. So information about you will be available for you to see as a participant in the program. Talk about the very many types of data sets that are being collected. And it really will be a resource open to all, ranging from high school students to people working in their garages to institutions like universities and ultimately to companies as well, to be able to access the data, but under very strict security and privacy safeguards that I'll talk more about this. Well, there are two ways to enroll. One is through health provider organizations like UAB and like the site here in Dothan. And then there are direct volunteers, because we have by no means covered the entire country with health provider organizations. But here you can enroll, as you'll see, a number of sites here in Dothan. Well, in a nutshell, the kind of protocol involves enrollment, giving consent to be a participant, and authorizing the sharing of your electronic health record. More about that in a moment. There are some basic surveys that you're asked to respond to, some really straightforward physical measurements, height, weight, blood pressure, that sort of thing. Biosamples, mainly blood and urine, in some cases also saliva. And if you wear digital devices like Fitbits or Apple Watches, things like that, you can elect to share some of the data that is collected from those as well. So a little more detail here. The first step is consent. And you can do this online. Joinallofus.org is the URL. And there you're asked, after a few brief videos to educate you about the program, you're asked to agree to participate, and very importantly, to share your electronic health record. And what that means is that if you're at one of the health provider organizations, that's where you get your care, then de-identified information, so it can't be linked directly to you when researchers eventually work with the data, so they won't know who is who. So they strip away any personal identifiers, and the information that ultimately is shared includes things like diagnostic codes, medications that you might have been on, major procedures, things of that sort, but not things that would be possible to identify you with. There are some surveys that are provided at the very beginning, really basic surveys about demographic information, overall health, lifestyle. You can see a list of some of the others. And then there is a continuing sort of progression of surveys that occur literally over the entire duration of the program, usually all told 10 years or more. During the COVID pandemic and sort of the toughest days of that, there was a survey looking at how people were coping with the COVID pandemic, but there's many other surveys that are occurring, and we actually strongly encourage participants to stay involved and to continue providing information, because a lot of the information is not going to be in your health record, but in fact is really self-reported. As mentioned, the physical measurements are pretty straightforward, nothing different than what you might have ordinarily had in the doctor's office, and you do get a little page showing you what the results were, but I don't think that's a great surprise to anybody. The biosamples, so we're looking most of the time at blood and urine, and you can get DNA, you'll see why that's important in a few minutes, from saliva as well, and so in some instances, there's an opportunity to provide saliva. By the way, the person whose blood is being drawn there is Josh Denny, the CEO of UAB Research. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, if you use mobile devices, you can elect to have the information, things like activity tracking, shared as well. Well, obviously, one of the key components here is to earn the trust of individuals who are participating. And one of their major concerns is privacy and security. So the data are all held in a database at Vanderbilt University, and with state-of-the-art encryption, testing the security on a regular basis. And with, as you'll see in a few minutes, major sort of hoops that researchers need to go through in order to get access to the data to support their research. Any preferences of what you want to release and what you don't want to release, respect it. And then one important thing to realize is that all of this occurs under what's called a certificate of confidentiality. What that means is that the information is not accessible to law enforcement or to the courts even. So courts cannot subpoena data that then would have to be released. It's completely protected from that. And one reason why that's important, a lot of people hear stories these days about how somebody had their genome sequenced and it got put on a public database, usually by them. And then the police go look at these databases and they solve crimes because they make a match between DNA, sometimes decades ago at a crime scene, and what's now available on these public databases, and somehow link people to crimes that hadn't been solved for a long time. That can't happen in the All of Us research program. Law enforcement does not have access to it and never will, based on this certificate of confidentiality. Well, I've mentioned the possibility of DNA sequencing. Let me say a few words about what actually is happening. So DNA, you'll probably remember, is the genetic information inside all of our cells. And there are altogether about 6 billion letters of the genetic code that each of us has. And although 99.9% of those letters are essentially the same from any one person to any other person, 0.1% of 6 billion is a large number, in the 6 million range. So you compare the genome of any two people, and you're going to find something like 6 million differences between those individuals. And among those differences, there are things that have no significance, that are not responsible for any particular trait. Small proportion of them are responsible for major diseases. We've no doubt of things like sickle cell anemia or cystic fibrosis. These kinds of things are due to genetic variants in that 6 billion basis. But then in between those extremes, there are lots of instances where genetic factors contribute to risk of disease, but don't per se cause it. Hypertension, diabetes, asthma, cancer, all these have a strong genetic component. And although genes don't absolutely determine these things, they definitely contribute. And one of the goals of the All of Us research program is to figure out which genes these are and to develop from that the ability to predict in advance individuals at risk, or if they should develop disease, understand the underlying mechanisms to a point where it can be treated more effectively. So everybody who opts in the program will have their entire genome sequenced. You want your genome sequenced for free, this is the way to get it done. There are several sites that are listed on the right-hand side where the sequencing is being done. And there is a return of results that is taking place. It actually has begun. It took a while to get that up and running, but it's happening. And the things that you get back, slide advance. I don't know why it's not responding. Great. So the kind of things you get back, first of all, are ancestry. What parts of the world, in very general terms, do your ancestors derive from? You may know that already, although once in a while people get surprised by some things that they learn. So continental ancestry is one thing that you get back. The second thing that you get back are what are called traits, things that are not medically significant, but people find interesting. One that's pointed out there is lactose intolerance. If you're unable to digest milk sugar. Another one shown at the upper right is whether you have a kind of a foul smell in your urine after consuming asparagus. So some of you know exactly what I'm talking about, and some of you have absolutely no idea. And that's because it's a genetic trait, whether we can detect that odor or not. So not medically important, but kind of interesting things. But in addition, there are some things that are medically relevant. And there is a return now of hereditary disease risk. And the All of Us program is using a list of genes that were actually put together by the American College of Medical Genetics and Genomics, consisting at this moment of 59 genes, that if you have a variant that predicts disease, it means that you have an increased likelihood of developing a variety of conditions, and they tend to be mostly cancer-related conditions or heart-related conditions. So probably most of you have heard of the BRCA1 or BRCA2 genes. These are genes where individuals that carry a variant are at increased risk of breast and ovarian cancer, in males, prostate cancer. And so that is tested, and those data will be returned to participants, assuming they've opted in to hearing about that information. Cardiovascular includes arrhythmias, causes of sudden death that you might not realize you were at risk for, and there may or may not be a known family history for those conditions, or problems of progressive heart failure. And then there's also a list of genes, which are shown in the table, that are involved in the way the body metabolizes medications. Turns out that the way various medicines are either activated so that they function or inactivated so that they're excreted is under genetic control. And it explains why some people with a standard dose of medicine don't seem to respond to it, or the opposite. Standard dose causes side effects that other people don't seem to experience. And turns out that is traceable to this list of genes and others as well. But these are the most common ones, and you'll get back information. Now, if you do get return of results of disease risk, that's done through a genetic counselor that actually contacts you by phone and provides the information. They offer free of charge confirmatory testing in a clinical lab. This is really done on a research basis. And then a handoff to clinicians, wherever it is you are, who can help you actually manage that risk. Because of course, the point of this isn't to know the name of the thing that you might someday get. It's to know that there's something you can do about it. And that's what this list of genes is. These are all things that are actionable. And if you know that you're at risk, you can actually take some kind of action, whether it's surveillance, medication, sometimes even surgery, to reduce that risk. That's the kind of rationale behind this. And probably as more such genes are identified, this will grow. Well, from a research perspective, what are the kinds of questions that can be asked? Well, just a few samples here. Preventing chronic pain, which is, as you can see, a pretty common problem. Finding better medications to treat chronic pain, better ways of treating things like diabetes, or better yet, preventing it in the first place. Recognizing individuals at risk of dementia, like Alzheimer's disease, and finding treatments that forestall that or prevent it entirely or treat it to occur. In cancer, you need to recognize it is a genetic disease. Occasionally, as mentioned, it can be due to changes that are inherited and which kind of set you on the road towards development of cancer. But in other cases, it's a purely acquired condition where a cell undergoes a genetic change that releases it from normal control of cell division. And then as time goes on, it's like a snowball running downhill. It gets more and more abnormal. And that's what leads ultimately to metastatic cancer. All of these are genetic changes, and we can identify what they are and how they work. We also can identify medications that will more effectively treat them. So from a research perspective, from a research perspective, how do researchers actually access the data? So there are these layers that exist now in terms of the access to data. So at the very bottom, what's referred to as the public tier, well, anybody can take a look at that. You can go today into researchallofus.org, and if you want to know how many people have been enrolled nationally, that number is there. you can actually dig a little deeper. For example, if you're personally interested, let's say in type 2 diabetes, you can find out how many people who registered have type 2 diabetes or any other condition that would be reflected either in the electronic health record or in self-reported information. But none of that's identifiable in terms of individuals. Now, one tier up, what's shown in the dark blue, is what's called the registered tier. And right now, to have access to that, you need to be working at an academic institution that has self-registered, and then you need to go through training online to agree to comply with the security and privacy rules. And you can't take any data out of all of us and do with it as you please. What they do instead is they kind of give you a sandbox that is within the all of us research space where you can do the work that you have told them you're interested in doing, and you can manipulate data using the tools that they provide. You can see from that, for example, results of survey data, other kinds of biological data, richer electronic health record data, but all de-identified. Well, the light gray above that is called the control tier. That is where the genomic data resides. That requires even higher levels of security clearance and training in order to access the data. But if you do, you can take a look, for example, simple kind of question you could ask is, take individuals with type 2 diabetes, and there'll be thousands of them at this point already in the program, and then create a group of individuals who don't have type 2 diabetes. And then you can look at the 6 million or more genetic variants that anybody has and say, do we find any variants more often in the group with diabetes than we do in the group without diabetes? It's called an association study. And from that, you can identify genetic variants that predict the likelihood of diabetes. Not only that, but what applies in one population, people of European ancestry, might be different in people of African ancestry and different in people of Eastern Asian ancestry, for example. And because of the diversity of the data set here, you can actually look at these different ancestral groups and come up with risk figures that are specific for individuals in different populations. Now, the light blue at the very top is actually what are described as studies that are called ancillary studies. And actually, one of them has been launched, which is called Nutrition for Precision Health. And UAB is a participant, it's one of, I think, 6 nationally that are involved. And there'll be a multi-year study, initially with tracking dietary intake, and eventually a small subset of people will actually be brought into a facility where their meals will be provided and very closely monitored. And the question here is, are there nutritional factors that influence risk of disease? So a few words about what we call the All of Us Southern Network, or as we describe it sometimes nationally, the All of Us. So the partner sites, UAB is the coordinating center. We have partners in Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, Tuskegee, where bioethics team is located, Selma and Montgomery, now Dothan, Mobile, and then in Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi. And we have 2 sites in New Orleans and now one in Baton Rouge. And we also have, at this moment, 3 mobile units, and a 4th one is being outfitted that will permit us to actually visit sites all around the region, including in areas that are relatively rural and underserved in many ways, and even where internet access. So the Dothan site launched just a little bit over a month ago. These are a few pictures of the launch event. Possibly some of you were there. And it's located at Health Center South in the Medical Tower Suite 208. And Shelley Olive is here at a table at the back. And I'd encourage you over the, just as we finish up here, to visit her. She has some brochures about the All of Us research program. And one of the opportunities that I think, potentially all of you could help us with is to make this available at places where you work, to even set up a table that helps us to spread the word. Of course, you're welcome to enroll yourselves, but also our hope is that we'll be able to spread the word so that we can make the Dothan site really a major success. And in this now, what I guess it's been about 6 weeks or something like that since it opened, the enrollment as of a few days ago at least was 32, about just under 10% of what we see as the goal for this year. So I will finish just by reminding you that you can actually call, join UAB, as you can see the phone number there, and all of us uabmedicine.org/Dothan. Joinallofus.org is another way to get into the system. But we really hope that we'll have the opportunity to talk to you more about this, to engage you, to really ask for your help in spreading the word so that individuals in this region are represented in the cohort of 1 million or more. With that, I just want to say thank you again for this opportunity. I look forward to working with you all over the course of time. So thanks very much. Questions on the agenda?
Let's say your testing showed that I was, had a tendency to be diabetic. And the drug A works good, based on my DNA, drug A works good, and drug B wouldn't, and give me bad side effects. How does that information, how does my doctor get access to that information?
Yeah, so I don't know if everybody can hear the question, but if you, for example, have diabetes and one drug is more likely to work well for you than another, how is your doctor going to get that information? So the hope here, this is a journey. This is not a one-stop thing. So what we are hoping will happen is that because of the data, that we'll figure out that some people respond better to one drug and some people respond better to another. And very likely there'll be a test. It wouldn't be surprising if it's a genetic test that predicts which of the drugs is most likely to work for you. And once that's established, it will be published, it will be disseminated nationally, and hopefully will be incorporated into the kind of protocols that health providers use. So, it's not like we'll discover it tomorrow and we'll eventually, it'll be up and running the day after. It's gonna take a while, but without this kind of data set, we'll never get there. And that's really what we're trying to facilitate. Yeah.
What's the number of the nationwide enrollment?
Something in the 650,000 range, give or take. Yeah, so, well on its way to 1 million. Yeah.
Is there a study for the correlation of the area of the country and the presence of some of these, whatever we have, medical problems, diabetics or something?
Yeah, that's a good question. I sometimes I'm at risk of giving the impression that it's all genomics. It's not. There's environmental histories that are collected, of course, physical location, where in the country you are. And it's done in a way that gives enough information about the environment without giving away who the individuals are. But yes, environmental, social factors, all these other things are very much integrated into the data set.
A few years ago, when our son was in the hospital, a doctor wanted to run a genetic test as part of this treatment. And Blue Cross wouldn't cover it. We had to decide to pay for that. Do you see some of that changing with the major insurance carriers?
Yeah, the question is, will insurance cover the cost of testing? So yes, things are continuing to progress even now. In that, there's the genome sequencing I mentioned, just for example, is something we use every day in diagnosing mostly rare conditions. And I won't say 100% of the time, but a high proportion of the time, even now, we're able to get insurance coverage. That seems to be progressive. Because I think what it takes is to demonstrate clinical utility, that it really makes a difference in clinical decision making. And that ultimately does bend the curve to a point where insurance companies will really cover the cost of testing. Again, this is a journey, you know, so if things are discovered tomorrow, it's not likely that Blue Cross is going to just embrace it and say, sure, they'll do it. But as data are accumulated that show the outcomes are better, if you do this test and then use that as a basis for your medication prescription, you know, I think they will come around, because they'll realize that in the long run, it makes the cost of care lower, right? Because you're going to be zeroing in on the cause, treating with the right treatment, and avoiding side effects. So I don't think they disagree conceptually, it's just that they need the data to be able to demonstrate it.
Thank you, Tara, for bringing this program and for coming. Let's stand and do the four-way test. Other things you think, say or do.
It is true. Will it bring goodwill and better friendships? Will be beneficial to all concerned.